Lately, there's been a lot of hype about the Ice Bucket Challenge and ALS and all that, but a lot of people don't really know what ALS is and how it affects the body. So I put together a small video to educate some people.
All voluntary movement in the body is controlled by the brain. Nerve cells in the brain, called upper motor neurons, initiate movement through the release of chemical signals called neurotransmitters. The signal is passed from the upper motor neurons to the lower motor neurons of the spine. Nerve fibers extending from the spine, called axons, extend into the muscles. The point where the axons and muscle fibers connect is called the neuromuscular junction. When the signal reaches the neuromuscular junction, it causes the muscle to contract, resulting in voluntary muscle movement. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, often called Lou Gehrig's disease, is a degenerative disease of both the upper and lower motor neurons. As more and more motor neurons become affected, they are unable to send signals for movement to the muscles. Loss of voluntary muscle movement and coordination develop. Over time, muscle weakness and spasticity develop. Patients are unable to perform routine activities, such as walking and getting out of a chair. Eventually, paralysis develops, interfering with the ability to swallow, talk, and breathe. Unfortunately, there is no cure for ALS. Death from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis usually occurs within 3 to 5 years from diagnosis.
The ALS Foundation is doing research to find a cure. They're doing a lot of research genetically because there is a form of ALS that is passed on from generation to generation. And they just want to know how it's caused because at this point it's random. Nobody knows how it is caused. Also, there's only one really well-known treatment, and that's Riluzole, which is a medication that you can take, but it only prolongs life for a few months. It's not very effective, so there's lots of clinical trials going on to help this disease get more treatment options. There's been a lot of funding. Obviously, the Ice Bucket Challenge has raised upwards of $3 million already. The funding is going to the research to help find a cure, but it's also going to families who need financial help. Obviously, this is a very expensive disease. You can't move. You need a wheelchair. You need an in-home nurse. You need help. So this is getting you funding. This is helping the people, the families that are affected, not just some big company. There are lots of people that are affected by ALS. There are 30,000 people that have ALS at one time. Obviously, the mortality rate is affected into that, but at one time, 30,000 people have ALS. 5,600 people in the U.S. are diagnosed a year. That's just how many are diagnosed. 60% of that are men. 93% of that are Caucasians. And they are usually diagnosed between the ages of 40 and 70. And obviously, there are some very rare cases when people are diagnosed younger, and it's terrible because this disease takes their life. There's no cure. There's nothing you can do about it. You just live with ALS and then eventually die. Mortality rate for people with ALS is 3 to 5 years after diagnosis. That doesn't sound like a very long time, and it's really not. Some people today have reported cases of a full reversal, like after their muscles deteriorate, they come back and they're strengthened. And even though the rate is 3 to 5 years, obviously there are extenuating circumstances where people live longer than 20 years. As you can see in the charts, like this affects everybody, and nobody knows why. It's so random, and that's what makes it such a horrible disease. There's nothing you can do to control it. It takes over your life. It takes over your body, and you just eventually lay down and die. So that brings me to the Ice Bucket Challenge and Pete Frates. This is a man who went really far in his baseball career, as far as he could. Obviously, he went to Boston College and was recruited by them, and did great things there. And then he was diagnosed with ALS, and his life was drastically changed. He never knew anything about the disease. He considered himself ignorant when it came to ALS, and until he was diagnosed, he didn't know what was wrong with him. He didn't know what was happening, and that really scared him, obviously, because if you don't know what's going on with your body and you start losing control, it can be very scary. So he started the Ice Bucket Challenge after he's been diagnosed with that ALS for 2 or 3 years, and he just wanted to get the word out there, let people know what ALS is, and he wanted to get funding, obviously, because there are so many people affected by this. He wanted to do research and find a cure ultimately, because this is personal for him. He has ALS, and he knows the end is near for him, and he just wants to find a cure. Maybe not for himself, but for others that are suffering with this, because it's not just about him. It's about everyone that's suffering from ALS, and he just wanted a way to spread the word, and this obviously worked. I mean, we're talking about it now, and everybody's done it. Football players, football teams, police officers, every person in East Cobb. It's worked, and $3 million have been raised for ALS, a disease that nobody knew or cared about. And that is truly remarkable. And it is because of Pete Frates that I have decided to do the Ice Bucket Challenge.
5,
Just do it.
4, 3, 2.